something.
Do something.
Just do something, stand there.
These plants keep moving. I think it's interesting.
They're alive.
They're all.
I'm getting a lot of trip on this.
Well, thank you so much for David for taking care of them. I have a plant in my office that Amina takes care of, and every once in a while she says, "Why is that plant still alive?"
God is.
Yes. Yeah, God is working some wonderful ways in keeping that plant alive. I really do appreciate it. Today's speaker is somebody that we all really appreciate having him a part of our group. Simon came in kind of a little bit hesitantly to our group here at church and kind of looked around like, who are these people? And they don't know me and I don't know them, and if they get to know me, are they going to love me and accept me? I mean, you know, you all come in with those questions. When you first enter a new group or new church or new school, you come in with wondering, how much should I let them know about me? And if I do, are they going to like me anyway? For some of you don't realize, but in the last 3 months I've been writing my life story. And I did a whole article, or whatever you want to call it, in there about a friend of mine. And she happens to be in rehab in Southern California for a knee replacement. And so what happened is I sent it to her. And she said, "Oh, please send me more of my book." I said, "This is my life story." She says, "No, it isn't when you write about me." And I thought, that's true. When we write about somebody else, it becomes theirs. And she then said, "Is it all right if I copy it and give it to everybody here at this where I am?" And I said, "Well, sure." And now she wants more. Well, that's, you know, and I realized there is more there, but I didn't think she wanted to share it. She does. She says, "I'm 81. I want people to know I really lived." And, yeah. And I said, okay, so that's what's happening. Well, that's what's happening now. We have Simon here, we watched him. He's completed his master's degree. He's gone on to get this wonderful job. He moved. He has a partner. I mean, there's so much going on that we watched him grow and change. And unfortunately cut all those curls off, but it's okay. We appreciate him with shorter hair too. And today he's going to be talking about finding your own answers. So please welcome Simon Jarrar.
Yes, Simon.
Didn't know this was going to become a talk of Simon talk.
Simon says. I know, cheap shots.
No, I don't like being compared to him.
You're wearing a black shirt, so what can I say?
Before I start, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on Ohlone land. They were the tribe that came before we lived here, and they are still here. And also my body can't decide whether I'm cold or hot, so if you see me doing my jacket on and off, just, I don't know, my body hasn't decided whether it's cold or hot.
It's been decided you are hot.
Thank you. Thanks. So my partner Casey and I have a pet snake, and I love this animal. And one day I was talking up our snake to my mom because I was so excited. And my mom asked me, "But does he love you back?" And I asked her, "Does it matter?" And I don't bring this up to like dunk on my mom or something. Like, it's a valid question, like, does your pet love you back? And she asked that question based on we have a cultural precept of we get pets because they love us back. It's something that we love and they love us. We like answers. This is actually an evolutionary advantage of humans. to seek answers. To know our environment and the animals and the creatures around us gives us that evolutionary advantage. We have a cause and effect, we have a before and after, we have all these sequences that are predicated on answers. What causes the rain to fall? Oh, it's the goddess blah blah of the rain, and if I do this rain dance, then we'll get more rain, and then I'll get more plants, and then we have more food to eat. This is great. I love this answer. I'm going to stick with it because it's working. Right? Now we have a lot of, we have culturally accepted and scripted questions and answers. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be limiting when we talk to each other about, especially things we don't really understand. Because without realizing it, we come in with pre-written questions that we may not have written ourselves. So I know, Dottie, you said to let go of the political stuff and world problems, but I'm going to bring them up again. Sorry, a little bit.
You see how much control I have.
A lot, especially particularly here, and people looking at California from the outside, we have a lot of, why are people homeless? And we have all these, we have like a list of answers that we have ready for this question. Oh, they abuse drugs. Oh, they're mentally ill. Oh, they're, down and out. Oh, they're disabled. Oh, it's because Reagan closed the centers or whatever. And, these are some questions and answers that we have. And usually when someone brings up maybe a different question or a different answer, people kind of get stopped up short. We have these why are people homeless question. And the question I usually ask in response to that is, why in a country with all this wealth and resources do we have people who are homeless? And they go, oh, well, and then and then a lot of times when I have this discussion with people, I have to fix this microphone. When I have this discussion with people, they go back to this, the individuals, and I go, well, wait, think about it this way. And with this new question of why in a country with all this wealth and resources do we have people who are homeless, suddenly the conversation shifts completely. So, as Dottie mentioned, I'm a researcher, I'm an anthropologist, I love questions. I eat questions for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I thought there was glitter.
No, glitter's only for breakfast.
Okay.
What's for dessert? I don't know. That's the question. What is for dessert? So sometimes with our culturally scripted questions and answers, we lose out on different perspectives because we love answers. I love questions. So here, I want to ask everyone just for a few seconds to just reflect a little bit on, we have over 90,000 thoughts a day, but I know there are some that really stick out for some people. I know there are for me. Just take a few seconds to think about some questions you ask yourself. And maybe when you're confiding in somebody, things you might ask that, usually get you the same answer. And I mean literally just a few seconds, like I'm going to interrupt you in a few seconds. So for me, and for a lot of people I know, a lot of the questions that people ask that get the same answer would be something like, why am I here on this planet? Or, am I a worthy human being? Who is God? And sometimes people ask these questions without even realizing. They might speak a refrain or what sounds like an answer that is based in a question. An example of that might be, well, I am just no good. And because I can't, fill in the blank, I can't X, then I just suck. Well, the question underlying that is, what is the basis of my worth as a human being? So in my experience, when people talk about being worthy, I'm going to just dissect that example question. A lot of the times the answer they get is, oh, of course, every human being is worthy. And then that answer is not satisfactory because that person finds themselves asking that question again, am I worthy of a human being, as a human being? So I'm going to use this question as sort of an example as a reframing the thing I'm talking about, which is essentially reframing questions and answers. What does worth mean? What does that word mean? The first definition that comes to my mind is the monetary value of an item. So digging deeper into this question of am I worthy? What am I worth? Am I worthless? Underlying questions of that might be things like, what can I contribute as a human being to a society? And in this country, a lot of the times when people talk about contributing to society, they need to get a job and pay taxes. Which, I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm on this earth to get up, go to work, pay taxes, pay bills, and die. So,
Yay.
am I worthy?
Yes. Yes.
Worth what?
My love.
Thank you.
Typically $1.95.
Oh, thank you.
95. Woo!
So asking questions of your questions can sometimes lead you on a completely different course of thinking. So back to the question I started with was, but does he love you back? Actually, the answer is no, because snakes can't love. But is my enjoyment of our pet based on whether or not it loves me back? Is that necessary for me to love an animal? Because I know a lot of people who will go, oh yeah, my cat hates me. They still keep the cat.
Well, cat.
That's never been my experience. My cats have always loved me. Whatever that means. So, spiritually, especially, we like to have answers. A lot of spirituality is predicated on the search for answers because we have all these big questions that we grew up with that people like to have answers for. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Where did the world come from? What is God or gods? Who is God? Who are they? And we want to have these answers because we're taught that with these answers, we can build a morality and move through the world. And here we are with everyone having their own answers to these questions. And we don't agree on all of them, which on its own is not a good or bad thing, it just is. But depending on the reason for seeking these answers, it can be a bad thing. And an example of this would be people who maybe grow up in homes where the spirituality of choice is the only choice. And if you deviate, you're punished. So coming off those questions and those answers would be another question of, why do I need these answers? And for many people, it's to develop a morality and a way of moving through the world. to not have those answers solid can be really scary for a lot of people. To live in uncertainty. Because we've evolved to, the reason humans have come so far biologically and socially is that with these answers we've created, we interact with our environment, we exert control over our environment, we create tools, we make agriculture, we build roads, we, invade other countries and conquer other people. That went too far. A little too much control there. And to not have this control is very frightening on an actual biological level. And letting go of that need can really open up for new questions and answers. And it really can help you think about the assumptions we make just going day to day in the world. I'm not saying assumptions are always bad, but you know what happens when you assume.
You know how it's spelled.
Make an ass out of you and me. So right now, we live in a time where we really want our answers to be a certain way. And as a culture, we're very polarized, we're very divided. If you're paying attention to the news, which, God bless, I'm so sorry, you're hearing a lot of this probably. Oh, we're the most divided we've ever been. Oh, we're the most polarized we've ever been. Because we've recycled the same questions and answers for decades and decades and decades. And they're still not working. So I'll do an example of this. I used to do question and answer panels for LGBT youth. I was on the panels. And a lot of the time, we did panels for high schoolers. We also did panels for foster parents in training. We did panels for medical professionals, teachers. And sometimes, at least 2 out of 5 panels I'd be on, we got a question of, do you think being gay or trans is a choice, or are you born that way? So that question, taking it apart, the choice or the nature? Depending on how I answer this question, right, or how we as a culture decide to answer this question, we will take a certain action. For a really long time, many pro-gay marriage activists were very, it's not a choice, it's not a choice. We're born this way, and we're cool with that. We're born this way, we're born this way, we're born this way. So then we start looking for the gay gene. We start looking for the hormones and the third son is most likely because of estrogen in the womb and this and that and all these other, and stopping and realizing that this is all based on the assumption that if something is intrinsic, inherent, and in your genes, that it is allowed. But if it's something you chose, then it is not allowed. So the question I pose to people who ask me that is, does it matter? I am still here. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter where I came from. I exist.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Now the new thing is with transgender people, we're also looking for the gene and the hormones and the brain scans and okay, cool, we find the scan of the brain that proves this person's really transgender, and that means that person whose brain scan fails the test doesn't get the medical treatment they need. These questions don't work. I quoted somebody in my summary of my talk in the insights and in the program. This is one from one of my favorite books. And I know it says a man in it. I wanted to make it gender neutral, but like I'm quoting somebody, so I didn't want to mess with the quote. Give a man an answer, and he gains a little fact. But give a man a question, and he'll find his own answers. Now, the context in this story. The protagonist of this story is recounting how his father would tell him a little story that was actually a riddle. And he said, my dad did this to just keep me quiet for a little while because I was always asking questions. And the person he's telling this to says, well, that's a cruel trick to play on a kid. And the protagonist responds with that quote. So if we all lived by that, and I'm talking about what I mentioned earlier, some of the example questions that I brought up, that we have, have cultural bases and have implications that people don't think about because we don't really think to ask other questions. Imagine how much dialogue we could open up culturally, socially, spiritually. And now, so we're spiritual center, so I'm transitioning into that part of the talk. Though I would argue that I don't think they're even separate things. I think my cultural and political work is ministry and spiritual work. So we bring up, who is God? Where is God? How? Why? Why do people do this thing? Why do people do that thing? And why am I born here? Why am I born there? I went to a conference in Orange County. It was an anthropology conference, and I presented, yay me. And there was someone else presenting about something called Jedi Spirituality. And he was talking, he did a small ethnography on, the Jedis of America. Basically, these are people who have taken the Star Wars universe and adopted the Jedi code and live it out in their own lives. And some of the questions people would ask the Jedis were, well, do you understand that this is fiction? What about when a new Star Wars movie comes out or a new Star Wars comic comes out? What do you do? Do you think this is real? And how do you deal with, the fact that we think this is like a fictional story? And the questions that the Jedi asked, rather than is it real, is does it work? And it works for them. What?
I said, force is just another word for universe, God, all of that, right?
Exactly. So I want to end this with just a little ask, a request. When you're out in the world, you find yourself asking yourself, whether it's from asking about your own self or the selves of others, questioning the questions you're asking, thinking about where they're coming from and who taught them to you, and what their goal was by introducing that question to you. And maybe a different question you could ask for another answer. Thank you.
There you go, John.
Do you immediately think of the questions? I want to quickly share
How high is
one.
up?
Yeah, while the choir stands up, I'm going to share one of the question I was once asked. This little girl came up to me, she was about 5 years old, and she looked up at me and she said, "Why are you so fat?" And her mother goes, "Shh, shh, 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 shh." Her mother was embarrassed, and I looked at her and I said, "When I was 5 years old, my mommy said to me, if you don't stop eating cake and candy, you're going to be fat when you grow up. And I didn't stop.
Wow.
And the mother looked at me and goes, okay. But we think that because kids ask a question, it's not okay. All of kids' questions are okay. All questions are okay. I thank you so much, Simon. That was wonderful. Okay, choir.
Didn't we sing that song? Oh,
I put it on the right one and you changed it.
I did.
I had it on the right one and you changed it. Tray 3, song 6.
3-6.
Tray 3, song 6. Corky. I was so prepared.
You were. You were over here, weren't you? Now I remember.
Here we are. It's a good thing y'all know us.
Beyond all measure, I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed beyond all measure. I am blessed in every way. I am blessed. 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 I am blessed.
We're trying to speak. It work.
I love that. You started singing I Am Blessed, and I realized we need to get the baskets.
I'll get that on my-
I have a minute.
Oh, you got it. You brought them out of your office, you just didn't.
Yeah, I had to.
Thank
I had
you.
to go get my purse and get my key to go in the office and get my baskets. It was quite a set to go. Oh, what a marvelous thing this has been.
Go ahead, start it.
I'm not through talking. The pastor is speaking. No, I'm gonna grab some power and use it. What I was going to say is that on the back of your program, we have the sacrament of giving. And this is what many people say, what were you talking about when you said something? Yeah. And so if you could all look at the back of your program and realize that this is what we say every Sunday. And think about it as you say it. Here we go.
Giving to the ministry, from which we receive our spiritual support and nurturing, is an affirmation and consciousness of the truth that Spirit is the prospering power, enriching every area of our lives.
Perfect timing.
All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me and blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me and blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me,